Jin, I can hear you.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Scarfey Spurs podcast. Tonight you'll be joined by me, Charlie Pisani. I am a 14-year-old Tottenham Hotspur content creator. Your host
If you're talking,
tonight.
Charlie, I can't hear you, mate.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Right, there we go. A 14-year-old content creator for Tottenham. I go to all the games, season ticket holder. So go check me out on YouTube. We are joined tonight by Dustin, James, and Matt. Dustin, how are you?
All right. 3 a.m. here in Singapore, but always up for a little venting.
James, how are you?
I'm not sure you can hear you.
James? Matt, can you hear me? How are you?
Yep, I got you. I'm good. It's kind of the opposite weather here in the central of the U.S. here, Dustin. We got 5 inches of snow on the ground today. So between 90 degrees Fahrenheit for you and literally snow on the ground for me, we're good aside from the Spurs, which I'm sure will bring up lively discussion today on the pod.
So yeah, on obviously Tottenham, a disappointing result this week. Obviously, disappointing 2-1 loss to Fulham. Vicario made a very big mistake.
Uh-oh.
Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we got you.
Everything okay?
All good.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hang on a minute, guys. Sorry. A few technical difficulties here. This is not. Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Right, sorry about that, guys. Dustin, I'm going to come to you first. Dustin, what were your thoughts on that Fulham game? Obviously, went quite south. Obviously, everyone came into that game expecting a win, and we got a disappointing 2-1 defeat. How did you feel off the back of that game?
I was really expecting a win, to be honest. It's one of those things where whenever there is a setup, right, which is a team that has a terrible record, a team that needs a win, can't buy a win, Dr. Tottenham's always there as you. And, it's one of those like rock and hard based things where they say we have the worst home record and second worst home record, and they have the worst away record. And, we somehow find a way to always give the opposition something that they dearly need and something that we as fans don't. So I think that to self-destruct and break records like conceding 2 goals in the fastest time ever just seems to be our destiny at the moment, where we are really plumbing the depths of despair, and so soon after our European trophy in 41 years.
Yeah. James, we have you back now. How are you, James?
Yeah, all good. Thanks, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm very good. Well, Tottenham always find a way to ruin our weekend, don't they?
Yeah, mate. I mean, it's getting a bit. I'm starting to lose a bit of patience, to be honest. Saturday, having quite a good day. Saturday, I've done some scouting in the non-leagues, the lower depths of the non-leagues, and was looking forward to the game. And just the way it started, it was just absolutely comical, really, wasn't it? I just don't really know. Words sort of escape me now. I'm not really sure, where this team's going. I don't think it's necessarily the manager's fault, but
Yeah, absolutely.
Results have got to start coming soon.
I do agree with you, James. I want to give Thomas Frank time personally, and I think we got to give him the time. We got to give him another 2 transfer windows to bring in the players he wants at the club. And we don't want to go through another summer transfer window of rebuilding. We want to sort of, get to a point where we are, where Arsenal are right now, pushing for that title in maybe 5 years' time. But, if it keeps going like this, I completely agree with you, James. Frank may be under a bit of pressure. And Matt, coming to you, what were your thoughts on that game?
I thought we were creative in how we found chances to lose the game. That was a new one. I'm getting a little. Let's put it this way: I'm getting a little fed up with the performative anger that our players are showing after games. Because if it really mattered that much, you should have shown it on the field. Like Vicario lets it in and is yelling at Udogie like Udogie screwed up. When Vicario was literally 3 feet from the touchline and could have just kicked it out. My 8-year-old daughter, who has been playing soccer for 2 years, football you guys call it. I'm in the States, it's soccer here. So, she's just started playing. She has the phrase, when in doubt, kick it out, memorized. Like, she wouldn't even make that kind of mistake. And then, I don't know, I felt a little bit, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking. I'm like James. I've got no words left to describe here, but it was a little insulting, to be honest, that both the manager and members of the team took issue with fans booing. Like, you guys, and I know I don't go to Tottenham games. Obviously, I'm 4,000 miles away. But the tickets are expensive, right? If I'm going to a sporting game, a sporting event here, and the team isn't playing well and doesn't look like they're putting forth an effort, right? Losing is one thing, but not putting forth an effort and making literally grade school mistakes in a Premier League game at the ticket prices fans are paying, they should be allowed to boo. It's not like they're throwing things. They're not being vile. They're just booing because they're frustrated because everybody in the stands knows that's you cannot make that mistake. And let's not let off on Porro and Danzo, who probably should have also covered the goal when they saw Vicario was out there.
Yeah. But
as far as the manager goes, I think we need to give him a little time, and I'm sure we'll get to that. But something's got to change soon. Otherwise, even myself, who is a Frank in guy, will start to lose some patience here.
Agree with you very much.
On the topic of the fans, I can't think of another fan base that is more tolerant of glorious defeat than we are. Where we will, we had a glorious against Milan where Bale scored the hat-trick. We do take positives from good performances, even if we don't get the results. But when you're not getting above 1 XG or even a shot on target for multiple halves in separate games, where you're not even getting the ball in the box in some halves, those are the kinds of performances that there's literally nothing to cheer for. You don't even get your bum off the seat to cheer any move at all. There's really nothing to look forward to if you don't even get the result.
Right. Like, perfect example was the Monaco game where we didn't score. We also didn't look like we were scoring. But Vicario made great saves, and so we gave credit for our defense showing up to keep it a 0-0 draw, and we got a result, even though we've never looked threatening, right? We've given him plaudits for improving the defense. Other fan bases that I have friends who are Arsenal fans, and they bemoan when they give up a goal. We're not there. We're looking for improvements. But it's getting harder and harder to see any improvements anywhere on the field.
Well, I mean, I have to say, at the start of the season, the very, very beginning, just after the Super Cup, if you'd have asked many Tottenham fans, how do you feel we're doing so far under Thomas Frank, they'd have said we're doing very, very well. It's only recently I've noticed that it's been going a bit south and that we've been losing a lot more games than we probably want to be. And, I love taking away positives from defeats. Of course I want to win. I see Tottenham as a club ambitious enough to win lots of trophies. Like last season, winning that Europa League, amazing. I just, when we're losing 2-1 to Fulham at home, not creating much. I mean, I'm going to touch on the lineup next. Not starting Xavi Simons at home to Fulham. That is going to completely blow his confidence, I think. Do you guys not think so?
I don't know. I mean, I can see where you're coming from, but it's also the fact that he is still a young, we can call him a kid, and we're getting up to the holiday fixture run where there's a lot of games coming up over the next month, and we already have the injury issues that have carried over from last year. So, in a way, I do see what you're saying with, it could get to his confidence, but we also don't know how it was approached, prior to the game. Was it Frank saying, hey, man, I want to try this, see how this goes? Or was it more like, we need you, you're important, but I also want to keep your legs fresh, because it's two different ways of approaching it. I think one kills the confidence and one doesn't hurt the confidence.
It could be I'm saving you for Newcastle, for example, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed Frank has done that. He has rested quite a few players, and this is a struggle we had last year in Europe. Was obviously players being bloated and constantly injured. James, what did you think about the lineup?
I mean, yeah, he's gone with a lineup that was similar to the PSG game, so you can't really blame him there, because we scored 3 goals away from home against European champions, so he's stuck with it. It just hasn't worked for whatever reason. I think he's still struggling to find that balance and the right lineup, so to speak. I remember what pundit it was. It might have been Danny Murphy saying he doesn't know his best lineup yet, and that's probably true, to be honest. It's still early days. He has been cautious, but then he's played with 2 up top the last 2 games. He's gone with Richarlison and Mawani. I just feel with Mawani, he's still getting used to the Premier League. Obviously, he scored twice against PSG. I think against a European opposition, he's more comfortable. But in the Premier League, it's even Udogie, I think, came out the other day and said he's still getting used to it. And this is his 3rd season, so it is cutthroat. It is the toughest league in the world in a way, but it's just the nature of the defeats and some of the mistakes we're making, and they're sort of becoming more regular again. So not only the Vicario one, but PSG, where Romero's given Sarr the ball in a stupid area, he's got dispossessed, and they've scored. You can't be doing that, especially against the likes of PSG. So yeah, I think the players do have to take accountability as well. But yeah, in terms of the lineup, I still think it's clearly it's clearly a puzzle that hasn't been solved yet, I think.
Well, I think in a way his hands are a little tied, right? Because we talk about injuries, and you can't just keep playing the same back 4 every game, because they're going to get worn out, right? They've done a lot of covering for us over the last couple of years. And even under, and Romero and Van de Ven were only healthy, 30% of the games or something they played together. So you kind of got to rotate a little bit there for sure. But in the midfield, there's only so many options we have who are healthy at this point, right? We still don't have Matters. We don't have Kulusevski's not back. Can't do Dragoshin in the back yet because he's not quite there. Up front, we know we have a problem at left wing. We know our strikers aren't good enough. Colomani is still getting used to stuff. He had the whatever it was, dead leg or whatnot for the first, couple months he was here. Solanke's still not healthy, so he's not accessible. It is interesting that Brendan Johnson seems to have disappeared from the lineups over the last 3-4 games. But so in a way, his hands are a little tied at the moment. So yes, he's still piecing it together, Frank, that is. but there's also kind of like there's 6 check boxes he makes every single game, and then the other 4 are kind of mix and match to see who's playing with the other 6. It feels like.
Yeah. And Dustin, what did you think about the lineup?
So the way I think about the lineup is that I think that there's a specific way that Frank prefers to create chances, and for whatever reason it is not central ball pressure. It's always go to the flank, which is like Kudus, and then penetrate down the flank and then cut it back to the center from there. But the times that we have had central ball progressors play, we've actually gotten the results. So when we've had Bergvall play in the center as a creative player, when we had Xavi in the center, it's just given a little bit of variety in the way that we create chances, because Kudus worked for a while, and teams figured out that that's our main creative outlet, so they just shut him down. And I think that's kind of a problem that Frank has suffered from and suffered from last season, which is when you come in with a new tactic and you're with a new team, there are ways that you can shock the league where they haven't had the chance to adapt to the way you create chances. But Premier League's the most well-resourced league in the world. They've got teams of analysts. So if the coach is too stupid to see it, there will be an analyst that can quietly back channel to the coach that this stuff is happening. And if the coach is humble to look at that analysis and go, yeah, you're right, we need to shut down Kudus, there will be an analyst that can tell the coach that we're up against, this is how we chances and this is how we can shut it down. So I think that there's a limited half-life for tactics that work for us. And then once analysts figure it out, we very quickly get shut down unless we have a coach that quickly adapts the systems or comes up with systems that cannot be easily shut down, because the system creates the chance, not the specific player. And I think we've seen with Kudus that has happened. The few times we've had 2 creative central players that can interplay with each other, do 1-2s and create centrally, we've actually had much better chance creation and more touches in the box, more shots on target. So I think that where we are lacking is our predictability in where we build up play from. And now that we've had Romero not playing, we also don't have one of our main 2 passes through the center as well. I feel that we have never seen a combination of like multiple creative midfielders in place. I mean, Madison's injured and everything, but we have Bergwall and Xavi. There's no reason why we can't play both of them together against certain opposition. Their team play against, I understand you want to be more solid, and that's why you play Bentancur and Paulinho. But we've seen that it was met where they pass to the side and Xavi doesn't get the ball, and you can't possibly waste Xavi in that way.
No, I agree with all of you there. Muani's obviously getting new to the league. And yeah, the system is very, very important for these players, and especially.
Ooh.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good, mate.
Yep. Nope.
Bentancur. I think it's way too defensive, and at home especially, we shouldn't be playing with them too. Next question, anyway. What do you lot think about Vicario's mistake? Obviously, awful mistake. I don't know what he was doing. I was in the south stand when it happened, and I remember everyone around me standing up. Boo! What are you doing? Punch in the air. No one was happy about it. I mean, obviously, it cost us a goal. What was he doing? We've already touched on it, Matt, with you saying about that your 6-year-old daughter would put the ball out of play. I play at the back for my team. I'd kick it out of play. our goalie would kick it out of play. I don't know what he was doing. I also looked to think maybe with Thomas Frank, is Frank telling him, don't kick it out of play, keep it in play? So yeah, Dustin, I'll come to you on that first. What did you think about Vicari's mistake?
So I think with Vicario's mistake, when you're a keeper, you're charging out, especially Vicario. We know isn't the ball playing keeper that we wish that Kinski could be, for example, right? Kinski is has a lot more composure on the ball. So the fact that he's out there and making that goal, he did the first thing right, which is get the ball. Even if he had kicked it out, they might have taken a quick throw in, which is possibly why he might have decided to kick it up and still keep it in play. But there are other ways to do it, right? You can dribble it out, pull it back in, like the infamous, I think it was a Dutch league game where the keeper kicked it out, but then he took another ball, he threw it in, so there's ball in play and then resume. There are ways to kick it out, but ensure that you are not a victim of the quick throw in. So I think he kind of panicked, made the choice to keep it in play so that he is not a victim of the quick throw in. But overall, I just think it's poor decision making on his part and also on the defender's part to not cover the goal, as Matt mentioned earlier. Overall, I feel that when players are in flow and when the team kind of has a togetherness, these things are instinctive, but it almost feels like they're a bit disjointed, and I'm not sure how much of it is because the underlying philosophy of the team has changed so much across managers. So this is not a judgment on which manager is better, but when you have a manager that prioritizes playing in a certain way, for you, maybe the manager wants him to keep the ball in play, but I don't think Frank is that style. You can believe it from Ange, right? Because Ange is we outshot whatever we do, and we almost never kick long. And you can see that from the statistics of how many long balls okay, that's completely changed. It's flipped around, where we play more long balls now than we did last season. Whereas last season we were consistently first, second for least long balls played out from the goal kick. So I think that from that perspective, the underlying philosophy of how we build that play, of how we maintain possession, has completely changed. Frank has also talked about how regards winning the ball or winning duels as a method of chance creation, which I mean you can think of it that way, and when you win the ball position half, you are in a better position to create a chance. But it's a very unsustainable way of creating chances because you're relying heavily on the ability to win the ball, which depending on the team you play against, if they retain possession well, you can't rely on that for chance creation. So it seems to me as a very different way of thinking about how we create chances. So the team's instinct that's built up over the last 2 seasons has done a complete reversal. And I think that's part of the bigger problem we have, which is that it's above the manager, this director of football level. You get rid of one manager, you bring in another manager that has a similar philosophy, so the players aren't at sea and that the players are still appropriate for the style of play. But if you keep switching between Poch, then Mourinho, then Nuno, then Conte, and all require different things,
Oh, so
then
different.
yeah, and so we all have these transition seasons, and the transitions are longer than they need to be because we've locked in players on contracts. So if the players don't fit the new manager style, we then now have to spend 2 seasons, 3 seasons, and sometimes they sit out the entire contracts. Right? So we've had players like Lo Celso and Ndombele on our books for multiple seasons. It is the director of football level where we're failing because the amount of flux that we get thrown into whenever we sack another manager is that we don't even replace him with a similar manager that needs similar players. We replace them with different philosophies, and then now we have players that don't really the system, and everyone shits on the players, and we have fans fighting each other. But it's also because we've got a overall structure that results in this kind of flux whenever we make a change.
Yeah, I see what you're going for here, and I would say that generally my bigger problem is on the players because Ange was such a hyper-specific system that we needed specialized players, right? Like Brennan Johnson works really well in that system because he has space to run down the right wing and whip it in, and there's always somebody there. Frank doesn't do that, so now Brennan Johnson looks like an absolute waste for $50 million because he no longer fits the system we went to. So part of that is, if one system doesn't work, you switch up a whole nother one. It's like, in the States here, when a team will fire, an American football coach, they'll go from a defensive-minded one to an offensive-minded one. And then you get that season where nothing is good because the defense has been lacking and then the offense is not built up yet. And it kind of, So I get the disjointedness, but I will also say that I think part of it is twofold. One, the injuries that have stretched from last year into this year and the extra games and minute load that players had to play last year is catching up to us at this point with tired legs and whatnot. We're still playing, now we're in a more elite competition in Champions League than a down Europa League year last year. And secondly, and I have seen this with other squads, namely, I watch a lot of Nottingham Forest. When they had Matt Turner in goal, and he was absolutely atrocious, could not be trusted to make even the most basic thing, the back four started to try to play so perfectly so as not to involve the keeper that they wound up making mistakes, and then you give away opportunities like we have seen this back line give up in the last 2 weeks, right? Because they have lost faith that Vicario can't even do basic things correctly. Now they're like, let's not let the ball get to him, and as soon as you start thinking you have to be perfect, you play your absolute worst version of yourself. So and then when the back line can't get it out because they're making mistakes, then the midfield, which is already short-staffed and not set up properly, as we've talked about, with way too defensive and not enough creativity, they can't get the ball. And then our forwards, who are already weak, can't get the ball either. So it's just this waterfalling effect. So the long way around is, I think we just have to realize that this is a transition season, and we've got, quite frankly, I've got not a lot of faith in most of these players that are on this team, and I know that's the expensive fix, but I think we have either really specialized players or the ones that got scouted in the previous regimes were the backup plan players, right? Because we've all complained that Levy's too cheap, so he goes with plan C that costs less money than plan A, but plan C is really an average player compared to the star-studded plan A. And then we go, oh, gee, well, we're excited because this guy's on our team, but he's average, and then it turns out he's average, and then we wonder why we're average. Like, there's this waterfalling situation going on.
It's the whole, we could have got Grealish, and we could have we could have got Bruno Fernandes, and we end up with Lo Celso, right? We got Grealish or Dybala, and we end up with like Ryan Nelson.
We could have had
Luis
Eze, and not that Xavi's bad, but I think we get the developmental guy rather than the polished player, and then don't want to invest the time to develop the guy, and then switch managers so often that whatever development happened under the previous manager doesn't carry over to the new one. So I think it's just we just need time is what it comes down to from my point of view.
I think we overrate the players quite a lot. I mean, I look at Kevin Danso. We brought him in from, I believe it was Lens in the French league. They're not a great side in France. And before that, he was with Southampton. Wolves were interested in signing him, and then all of a sudden he ended up at Tottenham and had to play a majority of the games last season. Dragusin, I don't think he's done too much great. Richarlison has ultimately looks to me now to, we can say, a failed signing. I think we need to, like you said, Matt, we're looking at Eze. Oh, Eze's 67 million for his release clause. Let's not sign him. Let's sign Xavi Simons for 50 million. Save 17 million. When how we brought Eze, look what Eze's doing at Arsenal and look what Simons is doing at Tottenham. There's a massive difference. I think if we'd have had Eze, we would be a lot higher than 11th. James, I can come to you quickly. What did you think about Vicario's mistake?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad one. I mean, it's done, and I think people do probably go on about mistakes too much. I mean, any mistake from a goalkeeper looks bad because it's the last line of defence at the end of the day. A striker will miss chances and they're not necessarily noted, but with a goalkeeper it obviously looks worse. I feel for him for a bit, but you can't be making mistakes like that. And it's just ridiculous. The booing, personally, I'm not a fan of, but I think Matt said, with the highest ticket prices in the league, I think they're the highest anyway.
They're average. They're equal to Real Madrid's ticket prices.
Yeah, so, people in a way have a right to. I mean, they're paying all that money. I've got mates that are season ticket holders, they're driving, it takes, it's the whole day, isn't it? It's a day out and it's a nice day, it's a social day. But when, when the results aren't coming, it starts to, become a bit draining, to be honest. You're paying all that money to go and watch average football. We've used the word average, and it is average. It's probably worse than average at the moment, to be honest with you. The results really need to start coming soon. I agree that Frank needs time, and it's a bit of a catch-22 situation in a way. But I mean, it just feels a bit like a bit of a circus at the moment. I mean, with the mistakes and the booing and the play, all that noise is just a bit of a circus.
So question, James, if the results were flipped, if our away form was our home form and our home form was our away form, would we feel the same way we do currently? Is it only because they're displaying terrible football in front of the people paying, all of that money?
I don't think that helps. I mean, if it was flipped, there's not a lot in it, but maybe if we've got more results at home, then the people with season tickets would feel better a little bit, at least.
I mean, you could explain it as well. They're not sleeping in their own beds. They're on the road. It's a tougher, I don't know. I just think it was I don't know how I would feel about it either, because at the end of the day, we're still 11th, which I think is. Yeah.
I mean, obviously the away form was good, but we've just lost the last two away, haven't we? Europe. Yes. I know it's Arsenal and PSG, but we've still lost the last two away. We've lost 3 on a spin. We've got Newcastle tomorrow night. I mean, I've got no confidence in getting a result up there tomorrow night. We've already lost to them in the League Cup up there. And just with the booing and Porro at the end of that game I don't know what he's doing. He's having a go at Bergvall for clapping the fans. Doesn't think he should be clapping the fans because they've booed Vicario, and it's just all a bit pathetic. Get on with it. Get on with it. And if you play better, then the fans are going to appreciate it more. It's as simple as that, really. It's all right for them. They're going back to their mansions after they've got hundreds of thousands of pounds for the week. People like me and the people I know, they're working their jobs hard all week. It's expensive luxury in a way to go and watch Premier League football. So they need to understand that and get out of their little bubble and realise what the normal working class person does to go and watch football.
Yeah, I completely agree there.
I think this is one of those where, and just for a disclosure, I'm a Marcelo Bielsa fanboy, but the fact that Bielsa these players do jobs to make sure that they understood how much their fans go through to pay for season tickets was it connects the players to the fan base.
Yeah, I think 2 things. One, I've seen some coaches over here in the States do that so that they can, their players can understand, hey, your $1 million paycheck isn't, this is what working at McDonald's would be like. And secondly, I think Vicario's mistake could be overlooked a little bit, not completely, but a little bit. If the goal goes in, he goes, "My bad." Like that's on me. Not gets up and starts yelling at people like it's somebody else's fault, which he always seems to do. And then like Pedro Porro, who had an absolute nightmare of a game, has a problem with Bergvall still appreciating some fans.
Hang on a minute, guys. Sorry if you can hear me.
Yeah. Like, I need that energy during the game. I don't need that energy after the game or to excuse away mistakes. Oh boy.
Hello.
Right, Charlie's got some technical issues. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, all
Yep,
good.
all good.
Yeah, we got you.
I'll step in the meantime, slash up on my phone. So you're talking about, I could hear Pedro Porro. It's an interesting discussion. I want to continue it because for me, I don't know if you saw, like, Porro's comments after. It's a clear dig at the fans. And, James makes some really good points in particular about, just get on with your job. But I also look at that and go, Vicario, I know you discussed it, the whole thing being booed, but I don't think you should have someone in that position who saved us so many times this season and be booed. And if you're a teammate, like if you just think your work colleague's been booed by the outer public, you're going to take that personally. I get players, they take the big wage and, they put themselves in the spotlight. That's a personal choice. But there's discussion to be had here in the wider point. Is there this disconnection? Because I think there is between the fans and the players. I think it's a huge issue. I'm going to give it to you first, Matthew. I mean, is there a kind of disconnection at the moment? And if there is, how big of a problem is it?
I think there's a disconnect, but I don't know that if like, I get what Frank is saying, where it's okay to boo after because we lost. But I think if it's a mistake that bad and that everybody in the stands knows should not have been made and you could see it coming, I think it's let's put it this way. If that mistake had happened and we had been, we've won, let's say 7 games, we've been unbeaten in our last 7 games, and that mistake happens, do I think there's booing? No, I don't think it's nearly as bad. I think it's a buildup of we've been terrible, you've been terrible, and then you do this and take away any shot of us getting a home result. I think that's what it came from. And like I said before, they weren't throwing things. They weren't being like saying vile slurs or whatnot.
They were loud boos. Oh, I was inside the stadium. They were loud boos after.
I could hear it on
the.
I could hear it on the broadcast, and then what we like to call here a Bronx cheer when he made a successful clearance later in the game, and there was like that ironic cheering. Okay, but you're paying ridiculous ticket prices to go and watch a guy who's making more than $1 million a year get paid to keep a ball out of the net and then not doing so because of his own mistake, and then get up and yell at somebody else like it was somebody else's mistake. Do I think the booing at halftime is okay? Yes, I do. You play like that, you're not creating anything. People are paying that much money. If they were throwing things at Vicario and you had to clear him out of the goal, which we've seen happen before at some other games where they have to clear guys out because fans are throwing things, that'd be I would not be in favor of that. But just booing because he made a mistake a 5-year-old wouldn't even make, I think they need a little bit tougher skin than that. I'm sorry, but that's kind of soft.
I think there's a distinction to be made between booing and like social media abuse that got like Brennan Johnson to like take down his Instagram, and it happened to Tell as well. So I think that the online kind of like toxicity is a different level, partially because algorithms, clicks, and whatever. But I think that when you're doing it in a person's face and it's abusive, that that's not acceptable. But what do you expect? You expect to be cheered off? I mean, as I said previously, there's no other fan base that's as forgiving as Glorious Failure than we are, right? So it takes quite a bit. I think my wife says it best, which is like, Spurs fans are the best husbands because they will put up with any kind of torture that you put them through, and that's just the club. So as it is, we are quite forgiving for performances. There have been players that have been booed very badly. Davinson Sanchez was one previous example, but you can't say they have in terms of performances. And maybe if for Sanchez, he was just put out to play a position he was not built to play, right? But for Vicario, that's basics. And to be fair to him, he has been saving us in previous games, but I think it's kind of frustration building up as well, where Vicario should not be put in a position where he has to save us multiple times in previous games, and that frustration has boiled over to the point that now that he has dropped a clanger, I'm sorry, but the credit from the bank from previously, no one's really in the mood to think about that because they're just generally angry.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you very much. You've all raised some good points, a little bit I've heard, and I think Charlie's having some technical issues, so good job. I finished work just in time, so I'll step in the meantime. Don't quite know where you are, but James, I'll come to you. I want to kind of keep at this point, but move ever so slightly to the side, and that is Thomas Frank the man to bring Tottenham together? Because we're up against a team next in Newcastle who it's all about the community, and I get it's totally different, the only football club in the city, etc. But the point is they're united, they're together. Eddie Howe, that he's installed that for me single-handedly. They always were a community anyway, but he's increased that, let's say, and brought them together. Can Thomas Frank do that? Because he was the man to do that at Brentford.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've already said, Harry, he needs time. It's just whether he gets that time. Eddie Howe, I think, is a fantastic manager. I'd like to see. I think he would have been a good option for England, but Spurs as well. But if he was at Spurs, would the same thing still happen? We've had this conversation before, where does it matter who the manager is? Are the same things still going to happen? Because we've discussed this over and over. We've tried bringing in the top winners, it hasn't worked. We've tried. Angie didn't work. Now Frank's struggling. Is it a deeper rooted problem? I think it is. I mean, because the evidence keeps backing it up. If his style of football isn't, the Tottenham way, and it's going the way that it did with Nuno, then he will inevitably go. But then who comes in? It's just the endless cycle of, who's gonna make it work. I think we got lucky with Poch. And I mean, maybe we've got to start looking sort of deeper under the surface. The owners, what are the Lewis family actually going to do now that they've been given the reins? There's a lot of unanswered questions, I think.
Absolutely.
I think the problem is kind of like it's because Levy has been at the club so long, right? And we've always kind of had managers fired before they were given the chance to. So as an example, right? We had Yall fired like at halftime. Okay, we've had Harry Redknapp fired because he was twerking for the England job. We've had Poch fired after going through 2 seasons of two transfer windows of no signings, bringing us to the Champions League final, 2 years of our most dominant performances, where the truly hit us. And we gave him 1 season of signings, and when that didn't work out well, as it has with Liverpool now, because you signed a lot of players, it doesn't mean you're entitled to have a good season. Just having just one bad season was enough to get him fired. Never given the coach time in that sense, where you can say that with certain coaches, it's you let them go because they're not the one. But when a coach shows that they could be the one, we've always cut them off the knee before they've had the chance to go through a blip. Poch is one example. Not everyone feels that way about Ange, but one trophy, right? And I think that however you feel about how last season went in the league, the togetherness of players cannot be denied, right? When he left, you saw like players, not their agents, but players actually talk about how much winning a trophy with Ange meant. I'm not saying that Ange is the guy, because there were problems with his style of play and the injuries and everything. If we are going to be that vicious with managers, then part of it also, like, it then self-select also for what kind of managers are going to come to Spurs, because they know they're not going to get a lot of time. When they know they're not going to get a lot of time, they become more short, because we have a reputation for that. So when you have become more short term, you have things like quarter to quarter cycles for businesses, startups, things like that. You've got short-termism, you've got elections where politicians only work in the next election and they don't do long-term planning for the country. So in a similar way, if Spurs has a reputation for not giving managers time, managers are not going to think long-term, and they're going to make decisions that are short-term wins as opposed to long-term sustainable. And then that leads into the way we do contracts, that we sign players and all of those things. So it feels like, again, it's above the manager's director level, and it's not giving the stability that we need, so that a manager has the confidence to go, I am able to take a transition season or a transition season or two, but then we'll be stronger for it. And because we need that kind of time, because you need that kind of time to let go of players you don't want, sign the players you need, develop them, get them to learn the system.
Nice. It makes a really good point there. Really good.
I was just going to say, everybody's brought up, James brought up Eddie Howe. We've all talked about Arteta at Arsenal. We've talked about, what do those guys all get? We talked about Frank at Brentford. What did they all get? Years to build a squad.
Time and back in.
Arteta finished 8th 2 years in a row when he first started at Arsenal, and they kept giving him time, and look what's happened. They've backed him. They spent $1 billion over the last.
I think they were like, sorry, Matt, I think they were like 16th at one point in his first season. Because we were above them. We got the Champions League. They didn't, and now it's just completely flipped.
Right.
That's the most frustrating thing.
Eddie Howe has been in Newcastle for 4 years at this point. He started in early November of 2021. It's been 4 years, so you say they're united, because he's had 4 seasons to build the squad. Frank had several years at Brentford to not only bring them up, but also keep them up and continue to build the squad. So, and we look at, Areola at Bournemouth has had multiple years now to build the squad and the thing, and look at, what they're doing. So the common denominator isn't system. It's not, all of those squads back people at different ways. I mean, Newcastle's had to sell players like Elliot Anderson because of PSR stuff and whatever. But they've all been given time. Tottenham doesn't give anybody time. That's the only Tottenham way we know. We're talking about the Tottenham way of playing. You can't tell me there's one definitive way that we've played given the scope of managers we've had over the last 2 decades. So I think what we all just need to do is realize we have average players, and the ones who are good and are showing it should be given the time to build, like Kudus, and I think Kolomwani's a guy we can probably build around up front, Van de Ven and Romero, and probably Bergwall. The rest of them, just start filling out the roster and actually give backing, give the Lewis family time too to see what they actually, will they put their money where their mouth is? They've talked a big game now that Levy got, basically kicked out to the street. Give everybody time. This unity thing doesn't happen overnight.
I think the additional point I'll make to that is that I think that rather than and I think it's instinctive that we look at the manager first because they're the ones doing press conferences and everything. But like we really have to look at club structure as being the main reason this is happening. Actually, because director of football level, they all set that direction. I mean, if you look at Brighton, they can go from Potter to another. They're always there or thereabouts because the structure's in place, the scouting's in place. They can sell Bissouma to us and then replace Caicedo. They can sell Caicedo, they replace him with Belba. So there's a system in place there that keeps him sustainable. Brentford's the same thing. Part of Frank's success at Brentford is also the scouting, right? The amount of players that they've had and sold on to much bigger clubs is another part of it. So I think that we have to look at how the reason Arsenal and United in particular fell so far behind after they lost Ferguson and Mourinho and Wenger was because it was the old school gap, right? And those clubs were built so much around the gaffer as the boss that does everything that they had no director of football. They didn't have any of these systems and didn't modernize. And Arsenal has, and United hasn't really, or they've done so in a very disorganized way. We are similar in sense. Levy has, even when we've had a director of football, Levy's micromanaged the director of football to the point that you might as well not have one. He's calmly. They've done some good work, but how much of it is Levy's interfering with them? Because we've seen from All or Nothing, he goes into Mourinho's office. Hey, I want to talk about football stuff, even though literally just do contracts and negotiations and get Beyonce in the stadium. That's what you're good for. So I think that the opportunity for the Lewis family is to genuinely move past the gaffer or the owner that micromanages everything and actually put in a team in place, trust the team, set up better structures, and not rely on those kinds of like old school ways of managing clubs that honestly the clubs still are managed that way are the clubs that are in the biggest mess, which is like United and us.
100%. Okay, thank you very much. You make some good points. That's an interesting discussion to have, and there's so much that we could talk about right now at Spurs. But the host for tonight is back, or he should be anyway, in Charlie. So I'll give the reins back over to him. Charlie, would you like to continue talking post-match about the Fulham defeat and move on to Newcastle?
Yeah, that's completely fine. I'm very sorry, everyone. My phone died in the middle of it. Very, very sorry. But yeah, let's get back into it straight from where we left off. About post-match and what happened there with Pedro Porro. What are your guys' opinions on that? With him telling Bergman not to clap the fans. Dustin, we'll come to you first.
Sure. I think that we can kind of agree that there's a level of toxicity from fans that is unacceptable, right? Particularly the stuff that happens online, the racist abuse and stuff like that. Booing a fan, booing a player. I mean, the Davinson Sanchez and Vicario stuff. When you target a player, it feels bad, but Vicario, he's an older player. He accepts responsibility. I thought it was brave of Vicario, regardless of his performance, to actually up and actually do the interviews with Sky and with Spurs play after that, right? Because that's taking responsibility. I would prefer that he didn't let it go like that, but at least he owns up to it. It is a bit annoying when he does the pointy, shouty thing, kind of like Højbjerg whenever a mistake is, even if he's the one making the mistake. But at least at the end of the day, he takes responsibility for it. I think where we have an issue is when players they want the fan to be the 12th man, they GA the crowd, but at some level, your performance has to come first. Like, fans are tired. We've had a season where we finished 17th. We won a title, but we won a title, I mean, in a tournament where we were 3 tournament favorites for. It was still difficult. It was still an achievement. But players have been through a hard season. We've basically been through hard times since Watch, right? So there's very little patience for bad performances. So it's completely understandable that the fans will boo. If it doesn't get to abuse, professionals, you're gonna have to suck it up.
Yeah, no, completely. I see what you're saying, Dustin, about how the fans need to be the 12th man. When you're playing like that, I'm sorry, a lot of fans are just not going to be happy and are going to shout and are going to boo. You know, I booed. I regret booing. I said that on my own channel, on my matchday vlog. I shouldn't have booed, but I was in a state where I was so angry with the mistake he's just made. It is a child's play mistake, and he's done that. I was extremely angry. I shouldn't have booed. I think the booing was a mistake. I think when we all booed Davington Sanchez, like you were saying, that was the end for me. It was like, nah, I'm gone. I am not coming back. I don't want to play for this club again. And he has gone on to Galatasaray now. For Vicario, I don't think it'll be the end, but I think he's made a big mistake. And for Porro also to stop Bergvall clapping the fans, he's got to understand what happened. Let's talk about the Newcastle game now. Anyway, going into that, James, I'll come to you on this one. What are your thoughts going into this game? I know you said earlier on in the live that you have no hope going into this game.
I mean, little hope. I mean, it's the hope that kills you, isn't it? But St James's Park is a fortress. It's what we should be trying to make our stadium, which is miles away from that, to be honest with you. When Harry popped on, he mentioned, they are the only club in their city and stuff like that. And, that's true, but, they use that to their advantage. It's almost like playing in Europe, away in Europe, going up there. I can't understand what they're saying anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be really tough, isn't it? Let's face it. I mean, I've got a little bit of hope. I always do. I think we've got Romero back tomorrow night, haven't we, after his suspension? So
yeah, he's a big player for us.
Yeah, a bit more solid at the back with the captain coming back. But I just worry creatively in midfield and our forward line that, are we going to get a goal? And if we do, it'll either be a set play or, on the break. I think the stats before the Fulham game, we'd had 4 through balls all season, which is like the lowest. The lowest in the league. It's just not good enough. Yes, we've got injuries, but it's not many. Maddison and Kulusevski, they're big players to miss, but Xavi Simons and all the other midfielders, we've got Johnson. There's other attacking talent in there, Bergvall. They should be stepping up. I thought Bergvall and Gray did well against PSG, but then they were disappointed against Fulham. So it's just, it's tough. Frank's done the right thing to go with them again against Fulham, but it was a poor performance again. In a way, I'm not surprised, but no disrespect to Fulham, but we should be, getting results, especially at home against teams like that. Tomorrow night will be tough. I think the best we can hope for is a draw, really.
Yeah. Matt, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I know we already lost to them in the League Cup. Part of me wonders if we played the B team there to give ourselves a little bit of a freer schedule and also maybe not show an actual hand for Premier League games. I don't know. Maybe I'm just grasping at straws. But all around, we need better performances going into this one. Van de Ven aside, because Van de Ven was spectacular against Fulham. And to be honest, I've watched the replay of the tackle he made in the box like 100 times and still am not sure how he made that so cleanly without – I mean, there's no hint of a foul there. I just don't know how he managed to pull that off.
He did it against Man United as well, didn't he? The one against United, he made that last-ditch tackle as well. So
yeah, he also saved the Europa League final with that sky hook of a block. I'm hoping for a draw. I don't expect a win. That would be the most Spursy thing possible, though, is after this run of form, go up to Newcastle and go beat a team coming off of their first, road win in 10 months, I think, when they beat Everton. I don't know. I'm concerned about Well, their midfield, to be honest, because their midfield when they're healthy is one of the better ones in the league, and ours, I don't think has the pace to necessarily keep up with them.
Matt,
And
while you're talking about the midfielder, would you go into this game if you were Thomas Frank with a 4-4-2 diamond like you did against PSG, so we can outrun the midfield and control the game?
what I saw from the PSG game was certainly better than I've seen from the last 3 or 4 Premier League games. So I would I think this is kitchen sink time for him. He's got to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. I would go with I would not play both Bentancur and Polina. You have to pick one and play them.
I agree with you on that.
And at this point, I'd rather give Bentancur a shot than Polina because I just don't think Polina has the mobility or the pace to help us against the Newcastle midfield.
But I think with the strength of Joe Linton in there, his tackling ability could be a huge positive in that game.
Yes and no, because my concern is that Polina also has a boatload of yellow cards already. And Joe Linton is a guy who can get under your skin because he never seems to be called for a foul or a yellow or anything when anybody else pulls those moves and they're like immediately kicked off the field. That's my only concern is that Polina sometimes, the red cloud gets the better, he just starts to see red. And I don't know if we need that in this game if Joe Linton starts. I am curious to see what we do about the speed that Alanga possesses because he did look like he was running wild down the side against Everton. So I think we've got to I'd be fine with Udogie there as long as he's got cleats that don't slip because he seemed to have a footing problem last week. So I think I'd like to see us try something different than we've done before because at this point, what do we have to lose going on the road at Newcastle?
Dustin, what are your thoughts going into this game that we always find a way to lose?
There are two teams that I least like us facing, and that's West Ham and Newcastle because they always seem to pull out all the stops and defy their own form, defy whatever funk they seem to be in, and put up a performance against us. I agree with Matt in kind of what I'm seeing from Van der Ven, where it's almost like watching Bale, where he would save us, he would save the game for us, and half the time I'm worrying about him going, what am I doing with this team? And that's kind of what it feels like now. I would agree with what Matt says about more midfield central creativity as well. We've had half of the Bentancur Polina axis, and frankly, like I did like the Polina thing with the caveat that a pure destroyer is great if it means that it frees up two creative players to not have to worry about recovering possession, and then they can play off each other. So if you had, like, for example, Maddison and Xavi with Paulinho just doing dirty work, and then Maddison and sorry, there's some interference happening with Maddison and just having two creative players do interplay with each other, one to flick tricks just to cut through the possession. It makes creativity a lot better because then you have more options. You can play different kinds of balls into the striker. But the issue I have is that if you have a situation where you're always relying on Kudus, and you always have two destroyers there that can't really progress the ball, can't receive on the turn, it's an opportunity for Frank to do something which he hasn't really done, which is to play two creative midfielders and then a Bentancur or Polina. So maybe a Bergvall and I'm hoping to see Bergwijn and Xavi, although I've worried that Xavi is a bit too lightweight against Jolin and Guimaraes. So the muscle in Newcastle's midfield is going to give us a nightmare, and the challenge we have is to be able to have our creative players help us create chances there, but not get completely bullied. So if we can sort out what happens in central midfield and not get taken apart by Anthony Gordon and Ilanga, then we may have a better shot. But I don't see us winning this game. I don't even see us drawing this game. And I'm only the positive one.
James, do you have any thoughts about the midfield discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the what the solution is in the midfield. I think Paulinho was, looking like one of the signings of the season. Early on when things are going well, especially away from home, beating City, beating Everton. But it's become evident that if he is playing, you haven't really got a progressive form of football going forward. I suppose there's pros and cons to every player in midfield. I just think with him, you're sacrificing creativity if he's going to play, especially if they're doing this whole double pivot thing with Bentancur. I think you've either got to play one or the other, which Frank seems to have started to do. So he's leaving one on the bench and one starting with Bergwijn, who's going to then get further forward. But yeah, like I said, it's still not clicking, is it? It's still not. The midfield, I think, is a bit of a problem. I think Matt, you've already mentioned, Johnson now is not really playing. It's a shame, but he's got his critics. Simmons hasn't settled. Sarr's a ball carrier. We're just missing that spark, basically. The sooner Kulusevski or Maddison come back, the better. Obviously, Kulusevski is closer, isn't he, to coming back from injury? Hopefully, he can come back in the side and give us that spark back. But even if he does, Richarlison and isn't really getting the goals either, is he? He has got 3 in his last 3, other than the Fulham game, hasn't he? But again, I just feel like we're just lacking that firepower and we're lacking that spark.
Yeah. How about this for a creative out of the box solution? You play Paulinho at center back with Romero and you put Van de Ven in the 6.
Van de Ven in the 6?
Yeah, you basically swap Van de Ven and Paulinho.
All right, yeah. I mean, that could work. I mean, we've seen it in the past, haven't we, with Ledley King playing as a defensive midfielder. There's no reason why not. I'm just not sure, in the modern day, managers like Frank are going to be brave enough to...
I mean, we saw Paulinho play center back earlier this year when we had to give folks a break. I'm just thinking Van de Ven then adds a little bit more speed and pace, and you still get the defensiveness, but you also get the offensive side.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Maybe try and get someone to get to Frank.
if we're going to move a centre back to the 6, I would move Romero because he's the true passing. Van de Ven has the speed, but teams.
He also has the most goals. He also has the most goals on the season.
Yeah, it's generally when teams open up, right? But teams are not going to open up in the center, or very few teams are naive enough to open up space in the center for Van de Ven to. So I feel that his impact there. I mean, Netherlands plays him as a left wing back, right? But I feel that if we're going to use a centre back to make a creative impact in the centre, Romero is basically our most creative through passer. And it's a question of him. And normally when he is doing build-up play, he's practically at the halfway line anyway. So if we did need a creative passer that kind of is able to battle Newcastle's midfield, and that's the problem I have. Like if we put Xavi and Bergwijn there, they're decent enough on the ball, but you've got a very physical midfield there, and I don't think that they're going to stand up to Newcastle's midfield. So if you needed a creative passer there, a very, very left field option is putting Romero there because he has the physicality and the ability to make passes. But it's really so left field that I think that Frank would have to be very desperate to start doing things like that.
Mhm.
Oh, it's definitely they throw everything at the wall and see what sticks solution. But
How did we get this desperate before Christmas?
because
Yeah.
we didn't get the
Yep.
6 players we wanted in the summer transfer window.
We already have 13 injuries or whatever it is, and we haven't even hit the Christmas period yet. How many injuries are we going to have after that?
Hopefully no more. But, you know.
Have you given your Newcastle score predictions?
No, but it's not sounding good though, Harry.
It's all it's very, very doom and gloom so far.
Well, I'm back. I don't know what's happened with Charlie, so apologies. I am back for now. So let's end with score predictions. A bit of a car crash, but thank you all for bearing with us. To say how it is, the absolute car crash. But Dustin, can I get your score prediction and scorers, please?
I'm normally the positive one on live streams, but I think it's going to be 3-1 Newcastle. I just think that we're either going to be too defensive in midfield, where if we play like Bentancur, Paulinia, and like it blows my mind that I think that adding Sar to the midfield is a progressive midfield because compared to Bentancur, Paulinia, it is because he at least carries the ball. So I feel that the midfield that's creative will get outmuscled Newcastle, but the midfield that is physical doesn't have enough creativity. So I really don't see solutions there because the players that we could put in midfield that would be able to help us, Madison because he has guile and Kulusevski because he has physicality, they're available. So it's really not having the options. It's really all our failings in the summer window that have come to roost. I don't see how Kudus is going to be able to have enough creativity to make up for the lack of central creativity. So it's a drum that I've beaten every time, which is we don't have enough creativity that's going through the center. Over rely on Kudus. So I don't see a way for us to score goals.
Fair enough. I totally agree with that. Newcastle are a strong side defensively under Eddie Howe. So, yeah, absolutely, you're right with that. James, can I get your honest score prediction and scorers in this game, please? Tuesday night at James's Park.
I mean, I've always tried to stay positive, Harry. So
You do.
I feel like 1-1. 1-1 keeps coming into my head. So I'm going to go with that. I think Richarlison's probably going to nick one, and then for Newcastle, I think Barnes has been in some good form. I think that's a player we should maybe have gone in for. I think we were linked to him when we went in for Madison. I like him a lot. So yeah, Barnes and Richarlison 1-1. Fingers crossed.
Wow, that is positive. I mean, would you take a draw? I mean, I certainly would.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I feel like a
No
win.
doubt about it then. Silly question. Absolutely. Thank you, James. Matt, come then, give us your score prediction. Who's going to score as well? That's the hardest bit sometimes. Who's going to score? I find it difficult. I go, yeah, I think we're going to do this, and go, who's actually going to get these goals?
Well, yeah, scoring goals seems to be our issue currently. I would take a draw. I would absolutely take a point at this point. I'm going to be hopeful and go with a 2-2 draw. I think we find a way to get maybe one in the run of play and then a set piece goal off one of maybe Van de Ven gets a set piece goal. I'll go with a 2-2 draw because I feel like both of these teams. I mean, Newcastle can score. They just put 4 past Everton, and Pickford had a terrible game there. And I just think this is one of those games where we could just show up and just try to brush everything off that's happened over the last week, and just have the team hunker down because it's on the road and put in a show. So I'll go with a 2-2 draw.
Good stuff. Thank you very much. Any final comments before we wrap up for the podcast?
Give Frank time. Let's not be like Frank out after 12, 13 games, because what does that get you? But back on the hamster wheel. If we want to make it to where all of our rivals are, they all gave their guys time and backing. And let's do that.
I agree with you, Matt. And not only that, just every game's massive for him at the moment. You've got Brentford coming up on Saturday, his old club. He just needs to start. Well, we need to start getting results. Simple as that, really.
100%. Right. Thank you all. You know me, I'm honest, and I'll say it how it is. And if you don't like it, then I apologise. So tonight was difficult, if I'm honest with you, but I take full responsibility. I organise the shows, I plan them, and if they don't go to plan, that is absolutely on me, and it should be. I just want to say with Charlie, right, this is someone that I met at the weekend, an incredibly talented individual, just turned 14, right? Just a bit of context here, and it's absolutely amazing. Like, we done interviews, unfortunately his didn't work, mine did, just a coincidence, but he asked some amazing questions. He gets straight to the point, and I learned a lot from him already, so I'll definitely be working with him in future for loads of different reasons that didn't work out. But it's on me. If you throw a 14-year-old in the deep end, you have to take that level of responsibility. So thank you to everyone.
That's what Spurs did with Vicario, so
exactly, yeah. Cock up. Let's just say it how it is, absolutely. And the cock up starts from who's above. With Tottenham it starts with Enoch, and with the channel it absolutely starts and ends with me. But I want to thank to everyone that has commented in terms of, got involved in the chat, because a load of amazing people supportive, and if you aren't, you're still getting involved and listening. Really do appreciate it. And a big thanks to my panel who are patient, tolerant, and took some pretty good stuff. I mean, I was only in here for a few minutes, and I like some of the conversations that go on as always. There's a reason you're all regulars, no doubt about that. But let's go through and see if you can find the panel across all socials. Dustin, thank you so much, and for your patience too. Where can people find you across social media?
You can find me at the names over there. I'm very bad at spelling them. That's why I have them tagged up there. I was going to make up the point about the coach as well, because I think that I didn't manage to make the point yet. I agree that Frank should be given time. I've not necessarily found his approaches ideal, but I don't think that we should make the mistake we've made previously, just coaches go when we don't have replacements that are obviously better. And at the moment, it's not a good market for coaches, because the coaches that are available are not great. I think that we should remember and not forget, just because that Daniel Levy is gone, we shouldn't forget that there are people above the manager that we need to point the finger at, because part of the problems that we have are about an unbalanced squad, lack of recruitment in the summer window, and a lack of recruitment in specific areas where we knew we needed strengthening. And this is something that the Lewis family has stepped up to. We've talked a good game, but we need to continue to hold the club hierarchy to account, because we can't keep shooting manager and complaining about transition seasons. So if there are issues with the squad and there are issues that are above the manager, we should remember that and hold the right people account, rather than making scapegoats of managers that can only do the best they can.
100%. Well said. Follow Dustin on social media. He makes some very, very good points. Voice of the reason, so I'd say thank you. James, really appreciate you coming back. Where can people follow you and talk to people a little bit about what you do, because it's very interesting?
Yeah, well, good. Thanks, Harry. Just giving Dustin and Matt a follow on X, so you can see I'm at Pastilio on X and Instagram. Also, JPP Writing on X. I write a series of articles called Diary of a Scout. They were first published on a website I write for called hooligan-soccer.com. Excuse me, American-based website. I actually write Tottenham articles for them as well, if you want to check them out on their website. My first volume 1 of my Diary of a Scout is now available on Amazon as an ebook, if you guys wanted to check it out. And I'm a first team scout of Harrogate Town, so often at non-league games at the weekend, trying to find the next diamond in the rough, so to speak. But that's me.
Good stuff. Can you bring them to Tottenham if you find some kind of talent?
Yeah, I'll try, mate. Yeah, that's the plan.
4 players at the moment, please. Someone can score a goal or set one up at least. Thank you, James. Appreciate all your stuff you do. Good stuff away from the channel as well, and always great to have you on.
Cheers,
Matt, thank you so much joining us from the US. I mean, got Dustin joining us from Singapore as well. So, proper spread across the world. That really represents for me where the channel is going. That's why, I take full responsibility for tonight, not being how I wanted it to go, but the bigger aim is what's important. But Matt, where can people follow you on the socials?
You can follow me at The Salesman. It's right there below me on the stream here on both X and Blue Sky. I don't tweet as much as I used to or post on Blue Sky as much as I used to, mainly because my kids keep me busy. But it's mostly sports stuff, Spurs related, American football, some NBA stuff in there too. But hopefully don't have to suffer too much longer as a Spurs fan here, and we start turning it around quicker. But
Exactly that.
And this podcast wasn't a car crash; it was just Spursy.
Yeah, Spursy, yeah. But again, it goes back to the person at the top to go
It's all good.
I'll take it on the chin. But
I've
no,
been suffering for 30 years, so carry on with the suffering for a bit.
Exactly that. But no, thank you to all of you. You've been amazing. I just want to say, and people can, take it whichever they want. But I am proud of Charlie, 14 years of age. I mean, I did start the channel at 13, but listen, you don't come into it with bags and bags of confidence. And meeting him at the weekend, this guy is talented. There's no, not just a coincidence that I've got him on. I couldn't make it. I've just found someone who can do it. Charlie was carefully selected, which was wrong by me. You must embed people before you throw them into the deep end, however good they may be. We could have Harry Kane on our hands. If you're going to throw him straight in and go, get on with it, I'll give you a few tools and, not properly do the basics, then they're not going to do very well. So fully on me. Big up to Charlie, and thank you to him for hosting. Thank you to you for your patience, and thank you to the panel for some amazing thoughts. We'll be back on Thursday to talk all things Tottenham again. That'd be a good one because we'll be reviewing that Newcastle game, whichever way the tide goes, and looking ahead to Brentford in the Premier League. Could be a therapy session, could be jubilation. You just don't know with Tottenham. That's the problem. And that's a good thing as well. But to wrap up, a massive comment.